My mother had been in the ground for less than 3 hours. The funeral flowers were still stiff and fragrant. The dirt on her grave hadn't fully settled. People were still wiping their eyes as they drove away. I was still wearing the same black dress that clung to me like a second skin of grief. And then my sister walked into my apartment like she owned the place. No hug. No, "How are you holding up?" Not even a hint of sorrow. She didn't sit. She didn't soften. She just tilted her chin up, a gesture I'd seen since childhood, the one that meant she was about to take something. "So," she said, brushing imaginary dust from her nails, "I'll take Mom's condo. And I want $2.5 million in cash from the inheritance. Mom would have wanted me to have it." Her voice was steady. Mine wasn't. "I'm Morgan Hale, 32 years old, the quiet sister. The one who always showed up, always cleaned up, always filled in the cracks others created. The one who did the emotional labor no one thanked me for." Colleen, meanwhile, was the gold-plated daughter. The favorite. The showpiece. The one Mom bragged about at book club. Colleen kicked off her heels, sank into my couch like she was attending a spa appointment and scrolled through her phone. Without looking at me, she said, "You know how to handle bank transfers. Do them tomorrow." Mom always said I deserved to be comfortable. My grief didn't shake. My breath stayed even. I watched her with a face she had never seen before. Because she had no idea what I knew. She had no idea what Mom had done months before she passed. He thought I was quiet because I was soft. No, I was quiet because I planned. Because silence is where strategy grows. She had no idea that Mom had spent her last lucid week documenting every stolen dollar, every forged signature, every time Colleen and her husband borrowed from her accounts and never paid it back. She didn't know Mom had entrusted all of it, to me. As Colleen talked about luxury renovations she would make to a condo she didn't own, I simply watched her, calm and unreadable, thinking, "She has no idea the storm is already on its way." Right, Rihook. But the real shock wasn't Colleen's demand. It was the truth waiting to explode the next morning.
The night after Colleen's performance, I barely slept. Not because of grief that had already carved a permanent ache inside me, but because the truth I carried felt like holding a lit match near gasoline. 7 months before Mom died, she had a week. A rare, precious week where her mind was clear, sharp, fully her. She used every minute of it. She wrote. She remembered. She confessed. She protected. She called me one evening, voice steady but tired. "Morgan, I need you to help me put things right." I didn't know what she meant until she handed me a stack of handwritten pages. Each statement detailed the exact ways Colleen and her husband had drained her. Credit cards used without permission, loans that were never repaid, documents they pressured her to sign while she was sedated after treatments. It was all there in her handwriting. Every date, every amount, every betrayal. I took her to a notary, then to an attorney I trusted. Mom insisted on one thing: keep this quiet. They must never corner you the way they cornered me. So I did. Those files lived in a locked drawer in my attorney's office. 8 thick folders, each labeled and indexed. But Mom didn't stop there. She rewrote her will. She redirected her assets. She made a final decision no one expected. And not a penny went where my sister believed it would. Colleen, still riding her lifelong wave of entitlement, had no idea that the inheritance she was ready to fight over had already disappeared. Not into my pocket, but into something far bigger. The next morning at 8:42 a.m., my phone buzzed. From Colleen. "Bank opens at 9. Don't drag this out. Then, if you delay, I'll involve lawyers. Then, we both know Mom wanted me taken care of. Then, I'm calling Dad." Good. I wanted all of them there. At 11:20, I walked into my attorney's office. He had everything ready. 8 folders, 8 truths, 8 pieces of evidence strong enough to crack the foundation my sister stood on. My phone lit up again. Dad calling, Colleen calling, her husband calling. But I ignored it, because for the first time in years, I wasn't the quiet sister. I was the prepared one. Right, Rihook? And by noon, they would all learn exactly what Mom left behind, and what she never intended to give them. Dad's house felt strangely small when I pulled up to the driveway. Maybe grief shrank everything, or maybe truth made walls feel tighter. Colleen was already pacing the porch, mascara streaked like war paint. Her husband stood behind her, pale and jittery. Dad looked exhausted, as though he'd aged a decade since yesterday. "Morgan," he said softly, "we just need to talk like a family." Family, a word people love to use when they want something. I didn't sit. I didn't hug anyone. I didn't even take off my coat. Instead, I walked straight to the dining table, the table where Mom once sliced apples for us, and placed the tote bag down. Then, one by one, I dropped 8 folders onto the wood. Thud, 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 thud. The room froze. Colleen swallowed hard. What is that?" "Mom's handwriting," I said simply. When I opened the first folder and slid a notarized page toward them, Colleen's knees buckled. She gripped the chair like it was the last thing keeping her standing. The page detailed a $48,700 charge to Mom's card, used by Colleen for her husband's failed land flip. Dad sat down slowly, rubbing his forehead. I opened the second folder. Sign dates, forgery samples, fingerprint sheets, attorney countersigns. You could feel the panic thicken the air. "You're not going to use this," Colleen whispered. "Right?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Instead, I tapped the third document. Everything was filed with Mom's estate attorney 7 months ago. Her husband's face drained of color. This wasn't revenge. This was record-keeping. Dad's voice cracked. "Why didn't you tell us?" I finally sat. Not out of weakness, out of position. Power sits. "I tried," I said quietly. "For 22 years. Silence swallowed the room. Then I slid the final envelope toward them. Colleen's hands shook as she opened it. One sentence. Signed. Sealed. Final. The entire estate had already been distributed. Dad blinked. Colleen blinked. Her husband whispered a curse. "You already took the money?" Colleen croaked. "No," I said softly. "That's what you assumed." "Then who?" "The Coastal Arts Foundation." Confusion washed over their faces. "Mom left everything," I explained, "to support young women in film and design. Her real legacy." Colleen stared at me as if her world had collapsed in slow motion. She had fought a war for a throne that never existed. Right arrow, rehook. But this wasn't the end, because I invited someone else to witness what came next. Dad's hands were shaking when the doorbell rang. Colleen practically jumped out of her skin. Her husband stepped back like he was preparing for impact. "I think," I said calmly, "that's for us." He opened the door, and 3 people stepped inside. 2 estate attorneys. 1 representative from the foundation's board. Dad whispered, "Oh my God." Colleen looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her alive. "I scheduled this," I said. "Mom wanted everything formal, transparent, witnessed." The attorneys began laying out documents like it was a courtroom. Every page, notarized, time-stamped, verified, irrefutable. Colleen moved her lips silently, like she was searching for a loophole. A typo. A miracle. "There has to be something wrong here," she said, voice shaking. One attorney replied calmly. Mrs. Hale ensured there wasn't. Dad rubbed his temples. "Why didn't she tell us? Why didn't she trust us?" "Because," I said gently, "every time she tried to talk about the future, each of you told her what you wanted." Colleen's husband muttered, "We thought she was just being dramatic." "No," I said softly. "You thought she was a vault." The foundation representative slid a deep blue folder toward me. "This is your role," she said. "Executive overseer of the Impact Initiative." Colleen whispered, "So you get everything?" I shook my head. "No, I don't get money. I get responsibility. I get a chance to help others. That's what Mom wanted." Dad leaned back, exhaling shakily. "Then we get nothing." "You get something," I corrected. "What Mom begged you to learn long ago." "What's that?" "Consequence." The word landed like a weight. Colleen's eyes filled, not with grief, but with the shock of realizing entitlement wasn't a legal currency. Her husband stepped away from her like he feared her downfall was contagious. The attorneys packed up. The foundation rep snapped her folder shut. And for the first time in my life, I felt taller than my sister. Not because I'd won anything, because she finally had to face the truth she'd run from her entire life. Right arrow, Rehook. But before the room emptied, one more decision waited, and it would change everything moving forward. The attorneys left first, followed by the foundation representative. Their footsteps faded down the hallway like the soft end of a verdict. The house grew quiet, painfully, terribly quiet. Colleen sat frozen, shoulders shaking but pride refusing to let her cry freely. Her husband stared at the floor, calculating his exit strategy. Dad looked smaller, like he finally understood the real cost of ignoring things for too long. I stood by the window, the cold light of the afternoon spilling across the hardwood floor. Outside, a bus hummed past, people living their lives unbothered by the earthquake happening inside this house. Colleen finally spoke, voice raw. So, you did all this just so nobody wins? I turned slowly. No, I said. You keep confusing winning with taking. Mom didn't want any of us fighting over scraps. She wanted peace, purpose, accountability. Colleen clenched her jaw. So you get to run everything? You get the power? No, I corrected. I get the work, the responsibility, the chance to undo some of the damage we all grew up with. She blinked, confused, furious, humbled. Then I added, and I'm starting something new. The room held its breath. I'm opening 2 additional seats in the mentorship program, I said, for girls who apply late because their homes are chaotic, because they don't get the luxury of being on time. Colleen froze. She knew exactly what that meant. It meant I wasn't punishing her. I was simply choosing to invest in people who needed it, the way she never chose to invest in anyone. Dad sighed, rubbing his face. We're starting therapy, he said quietly. All of us. Next week. I nodded. That's good for you, I said. But it's your journey, not mine. He looked hurt for a moment, then thoughtful. Colleen stood up slowly, heels clicking on the floor. No more shouting. No more demands. No more entitlement. Just defeat. Quiet and heavy. She walked out the front door without a word, her husband trailing behind her. Dad followed last, pausing at the doorway. Take care, Morgan. You too, I replied gently. Then I locked the door, not out of spite, but out of peace. For the first time, the quiet didn't feel like suffocating. Felt like freedom. Right arrow, Rehook. But peace wasn't the end, because the real beginning came the next morning. The next morning, I arrived at the foundation office early. The sun was just cresting over the skyline, casting pale gold light across the glass panels. This place, this mission was Mom's real legacy. Not money, not property, not the illusions my family fought over. Impact. I unlocked my office, placed my bag on the chair, and opened the first application file of the new cycle. A girl from Salem, raised by a single mother, applying late because she worked 2 jobs. Her essay began, I don't want to escape my family. I want to grow beyond them. I smiled, a real one, not the practiced polite one I used around my sister for years. This girl had fire, focus, hope, exactly the kind of student Mom would have rooted for. I spent the morning reviewing applications, making calls, approving smaller grants. Every decision felt like laying down a brick on a new road. One mom started paving long before she passed. At noon, the 3 finalists arrived for interviews. The girl from Salem shook my hand with a firm, nervous grip. I didn't think I'd make it this far, she said shyly. You made it because you didn't give up, I told her. That matters here. By 5 o'clock, the board had voted. 3 young women, each one now carrying the beginning of their own legacy. I wrote their names on acceptance letters with slow, careful pen strokes. Names that deserved to be seen. Names Mom would have been proud of. As I locked the office and stepped outside, the city buzzed softly around me. Life moving forward. Quietly, steadily, purposefully. My phone buzzed, Dad again. This isn't an apology, but we're trying. We're starting therapy today. For a moment, I let the message sit there. It didn't sting. It didn't reopen anything. It just existed. I typed, "Thank you. Take care of yourselves." Then I muted the thread. Because growth isn't about who returns. It's about who you choose to walk forward with. I took a long breath, letting the cool air settle inside me, and walked toward the evening light. Mom didn't leave me money. She left me freedom. She left me clarity. She left me a legacy that didn't need inheritance to feel rich. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel quiet. I felt complete.